Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Go Premanandi Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Asatara Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Asatara Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Sai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dhamma Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yogya Ki Jai, Priya Mridanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Krishna Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Go Premanandi! Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Radha Madhava Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji ki jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Dojayam Mudiraye. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, in person and online. Thank you for giving your ears and your time for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam this morning. We're continuing with Canto 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you. And we are hearing the response of Lord Vishnu to the demigods when they approached him after Vritrasura swallowed all their weapons and they were in fear for their lives. They were uncertain if they would be able to win this battle and overcome Vritra. So on Saturday we heard a bit of the Lord's instructions, and now we have time to review the last few instructions. We're starting with Canto 6, Chapter 9, verse 50. So if you'd like to pull it up on your device, 6:9:50. Are we ready for call and response? Okay. Swayam nishrayasam vidvan navaktyan agyaya karmahi narati rogino patyam vanchatopi bishaktama swayam nishreyasam vidvan navaktyagya karmahi narati rogino patyam vanchatopi bishaktamaha swayam nishreyasam vidvan navaktyagya karmahi narati rogino patyam vanchatopi bishaktamaha. Others can chant. This is 6:9:50, Prabhu. Swayam nishreyasam vidvan navaktyagya karmahi narati rogino patyam Vanshatopi Bishaktamaha Svayam Nishreyasam Vidvan Navakyagaya Karmahi Narati Rogino Patyam Vanshatopi Bishaktamaha. All right. We can read the word for word together since you've got it there on your devices. Swayam, personally. Do we all have it there? We can read it together? Okay. Nishreyasam, the supreme goal of life, namely the means of obtaining ecstatic love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vitvan, one who is accomplished in devotional service. Na, not. Bhakti, teaches. Agyaya, unto a foolish person not conversant with the ultimate goal of life. Karma, fruitive activities. He, indeed. Na, not. Rati, administers. Rogina, unto the patient. Apatyam, something unconsumable. Vanshata, desiring. Api, although. Bishaktama, an experienced physician. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So this is Lord Vishnu speaking to the demigods, continuing the instruction from his last verse. Because just before I read this for a little context, the demigods are approaching Lord Vishnu because they want protection, so they can continue enjoying the opulence and the position of being in the heavenly planets. So they're approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can give anything, and yet they're asking for this tiny little material benefit, temporary material benefit. And so the Lord chastises them. In the previous verse, he said that actually, if someone thinks that the ultimate goal of life is material gain, then they're a miser, and they don't know what's really good for themselves. And if someone gives that material benefit to the person who's asking, they're also foolish. So the Lord's saying, I'm not foolish. I don't give temporary material benefits just so someone can continue their material life. And so now he's continuing on in that spirit. The Lord says, a pure devotee who is fully accomplished in the science of devotional service will never instruct a foolish person to engage in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, not to speak of helping him in such activities. Such a devotee is like an experienced physician who never encourages a patient to eat food injurious to his health, even if the patient desires it. Purport. Here's the difference between the benedictions awarded by the demigods and those awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Devotees of the demigods ask for benedictions simply for sense gratification, and therefore they have been described in Bhagavad Gita 7:20 as bereft of intelligence. Kamaistaiter hrityajnana prapadyante nyadevata tam tam niyamam asthaya prakrita niyata swaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Conditioned souls generally are bereft of intelligence because of profound desires for sense gratification. They do not know what benedictions to ask. Therefore, non-devotees are advised in the Shastras to worship various demigods to achieve material benefits. For example, if one wants a beautiful wife, he is advised to worship Uma, or goddess Durga. If one wants to be cured of a disease, he is advised to worship the sun god. All requests for benedictions from the demigods, however, are due to material lust. The benedictions will be finished at the end of the cosmic manifestation, along with those who bestow them. If one approaches Lord Vishnu for benedictions, the Lord will give him a benediction that will help him return home back to Godhead. I'll read that again. It's very powerful in this context. If one approaches Lord Vishnu for benedictions, the Lord will give him a benediction that will help him return home back to Godhead. This is also confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tisham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Lord Vishnu, or Lord Krishna, instructs a devotee who constantly engages in his service how to approach him at the end of his material body. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is the benediction of Lord Vishnu, Krishna. After giving up his body, a devotee returns home, back to Godhead. A devotee may foolishly ask for material benedictions, but Lord Krishna does not give him such benedictions, despite the devotee's prayers. Therefore, people who are very attached to material life do not generally become devotees of Krishna or Vishnu. Instead, they become devotees of the demigods. Kamaistaister hrityajnana prapadyante nyadevata. The benedictions of the demigods, however, are condemned in Bhagavad Gita. Antavat tu palam tesham tad bhavatyalpa medhasam. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. A non-Vaishnava, one who is not engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is considered a fool with a small quantity of brain substance. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So Srila Prabhupada here is clarifying for us the difference between worshipping demigods and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the different ways that they reciprocate with their worshippers. Those who want material gain worship the demigods, and Krishna says in the Gita that they're krita jnana, which means that their intelligence, their knowledge is stolen. Krita jnana. And they're driven by lust. So this is the quality of one who approaches demigods for material benefits. We have the example of Lord Shiva, who's known as Ashutosh, because he is very easily pleased and very easily becomes angry. So we have a famous example of Vrika, who approached Lord Shiva. He was offering his own flesh into a fire to Lord Shiva. He was even going to offer his own head, right? And before he cut his throat, Lord Shiva appeared and offered him a benediction. And Vrikasura asked for the benediction that whosoever he would touch on the head, or whoever he would touch their body, they would explode. Quite a benediction to ask. A very violent, mystic power to request. So he received this benefit, and he was going to use it on Lord Shiva, so Lord Shiva ran away. And then, was it Vishnu disguised? He turned into Vamana, okay. And he said that, you know, you should test that benediction. I'm not sure if it actually works. I'm not sure Lord Shiva is so trustworthy. Okay, I'll repeat it just so others online can hear. So Lord Vamana was asking Vrika, where are you going? I can help you find where to go. And then he told him to test the benediction on himself, right? So, yeah, Mishra Bhagavan Prabhu is giving the details. Lord Vamana said, yeah, test this on yourself, and once you recognize it doesn't work, then you can criticize Lord Shiva to everyone, explaining how his benedictions don't work. And then Viverka tried, and he exploded, and proved himself quite foolish. And Srila Prabhupada gives us this, he cites this pastime to highlight that approaching the demigods for benedictions means they won't necessarily give us what's good for us. They'll just give us what we request of them. Whereas, on the other hand, if we approach the Lord for benedictions, he won't necessarily give us what we ask for, but he will give us what we need, which can be challenging for a devotee to be patient and wait for the Lord to reciprocate. There's that famous verse of Lord Brahma, Tattenukampam susamikshamano unjanami vatmakritam vipakam, that one patiently tolerates the reactions to their own past misdeeds and earnestly seeking the mercy of the Lord. All the while, hridvag vapur bir vididhan namaste, offering their respects, their worship to the Lord with their mind, body, and words. Then, jiveta yomukti pade sadaya bhak. They inherit the kingdom of God because they are the rightful heir to the kingdom as a son of God. So Krishna will give us what we need. We will just have to tolerate our own suffering that we've created for ourselves with our own misdeeds. A big challenge in approaching Krishna and earnestly waiting for his mercy is the waiting part, is the patience. Rupa Goswami says we need to have utsaha, or enthusiasm. We need to have nischaya, determination, and dharya, or patience. So often enthusiasm is not as difficult, especially at the beginning of devotional service, or when we're in good association. We can be enthusiastic. The patience is a challenge to have. Don't be like a doctor and lose your patience. Yeah. So Krishna, as the supreme doctor, he gives us what is best for his patients, and we need to be patient. Yeah. Fortunately, Krishna will give us the intelligence. Srila Prabhupada quotes this famous verse, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. It may be difficult to endure the reactions to our past misdeeds, but Krishna will give us the intelligence. He'll guide us. You should go take association from this devotee. You should read more. You should come to morning program more. You should. He'll give us that guidance from within and also from without through our mentors, our friends, maybe even some random person. If we are open to receiving Krishna's guidance, then we may receive it in unexpected forms. Just like Srila Prabhupada, when he was in India, still before he had come to America, he was printing Back to Godhead magazine and distributing this. And some person, just kind of a random encounter, told him that books are more permanent and this would be better to distribute books than magazines. And Srila Prabhupada took that as guidance from his own spiritual master. So we should be on the lookout for messages whenever and wherever we may be, because Krishna is guiding us. So this is the difference between approaching demigods and the Supreme Lord. Now the Lord will continue. We'll finish on this chapter because tomorrow we'll start with the Krishna House semester and we'll begin with a new chapter. So I'll read text 51, translation. now the Lord will be, he's chastised the demigods and explained that he and his pure devotees don't give things for temporary material benefit. They'll give what's actually good for those who approach them, like an experienced physician. And now he'll give them practical knowledge of how they can go about defeating Vritrasura. The Lord says, O Magavan, Indra, all good fortune unto you. I advise you to approach the exalted saint Dadyancha, or Dadichi. He has become very accomplished in knowledge, vows, and austerities, and his body is very strong. Go ask him for his body without delay. And I'll read this short purport. Everyone in this material world, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, is eager to keep his body comfortable. A pure devotee may also be comfortable, but he is not eager for such a benediction. Since Magavan, the king of heaven, still aspired for a comfortable bodily situation, Lord Vishnu advised him to ask Dadyancha for his body, which was very strong due to his knowledge, vows, and austerity. So next week, or starting tomorrow, we'll hear the pastime of Dadichi Muni, which is extraordinary, the level of surrender of Dadichi, giving up his body for the service of the Lord, because this is what the Lord desired, this is what the Lord ordered. Extremely surrendered. This is Atma Nivedanam, giving everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Text 52. That saintly Dadyancha, who is also known as Dadichi, personally assimilated the spiritual science and then delivered it to the Ashwini Kumaras. It is said that Dadyancha gave them mantras through the head of a horse. Therefore the mantras are called Ashvashira. After obtaining the mantras of spiritual science from Dadichi, the Ashwini Kumaras became Jivan Mukta, liberated even in this life. So this is a curious story Srila Prabhupada cites here in the purport, that the Ashwini Kumaras, who were experienced physicians, they approached Dadichi Muni for knowledge. They wanted to get Brahma Vidya. And when Indra heard of this, Indra told Dadichi, don't teach them. They're just doctors. They're not qualified to learn Brahma Vidya. And so after he had left, the Ashwini Kumaras returned and said, no, don't worry. So, okay, Indra had said that he would cut off Dadichi's head if he taught them. So the Ashwini Kumaras said, don't worry. We will give you a horse's head. And when Indra comes to cut off your head, then we'll replace it with your original head. Apparently they were expert at surgical operations as experienced physicians. So they did this, and Dadichi taught them through the head of a horse, as Lord Vishnu explains here in the translation. And they did as they promised, and this is why that knowledge is called Ashva Shira. Very interesting story. This is, for me, it's a lesson in the eagerness to learn and an eagerness to teach, right? Are we so desirous to give a Bhagavatam class that we'll switch for a horse head? That we'll go through a surgical operation just so we can give a class? How eager was Dadichi Muni to instruct about transcendental wisdom? Text 53. Dadyancha's invincible protective covering, known as the Narayan Kavacha, was given to Twashta, who delivered it to his own son, Vishwarup, from whom you have received it. Because of this Narayan Kavacha, Dadichi's body is now very strong. You should therefore beg him for his body. Text 54. When the Ashwini Kumaras beg for Dadyancha's body on your behalf, he will surely give it because of affection. Do not doubt this, for Dadyancha is very experienced in religious understanding. When Dadyancha awards you his body, Vishwakarma will prepare a thunderbolt from his bones. This thunderbolt will certainly kill Vritrasura, because it will be invested with my power. Quite an interesting instruction the Lord is giving. That his pure devotee, this saint, Dadichi, the Lord himself is saying, go and basically ask for the death of this pure devotee so that you can accomplish your material desires. Very interesting. So we'll explore this more in the coming classes. How is this that the Lord would arrange for the death of his devotee for some material gain for the demigods? And one perspective, others will share more, I'm sure, is that the Lord glorifies his devotees. The suffering that a conditioned soul goes through, or a struggling sadhaka like myself, the suffering is purification. But for a pure devotee, it's glorification. So Dadichi Muni's glories are highlighted here. Although he goes through such a tribulation, he very willingly, very happily gives up his body. We see this in the life of Srila Prabhupada as well, how he went through such trials and tribulations, and this glorifies him. If he hadn't struggled so much, we wouldn't have seen the glories of Srila Prabhupada as much. Like in a dark room, a light shines very brightly, but in the sunlight, you can't see the light of that lamp as clearly, as distinctly. Okay, finally, text 55. When Vritrasura is killed because of my spiritual strength, you will regain your strength, weapons, and wealth. Thus, there will be all good fortune for you, for all of you. Although Vritrasura can destroy all the three worlds, do not fear that he will harm you. He is also a devotee and will never be envious of you. So this last point I wanted to share on this verse here is devotees are non-violent. Na himsanti cha matparan, the Lord says, that my devotees will never cause harm to others. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that not only are devotees not violent towards others, but in fact, they try to benefit others. He says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada Priya quoted this in her class, that non-violence, ahimsa, Srila Prabhupada defines that anything we do which keeps one tied to the material world is actually violence. Because ultimately we suffer in this world. So to keep someone in this world will cause them to suffer. Anything we do that is binding someone more to this world, whether it's just talking about mundane subjects, or encouraging them to do mundane things, or recommending a mundane Netflix show. These things are conditioning someone's consciousness to material enjoyment and will cause them to suffer. Violence means to cause someone else suffering, cause someone else pain. So not only do we not do things which bind people, but devotees, out of compassion, actively do things which uplift others. Like yesterday we had a nice discussion on the glories of Sankirtan, going out and sharing the holy names, of sharing Srila Prabhupada's books, sharing Krishna Prasadam with the people of the world who desperately need it. So devotees are not only not violent, not envious, but they're actually benevolent. There's violence and there's benevolence. Benevolence means to be a well-wisher. It literally means to be a well-wisher. If you look up the etymology, bena is like goodness, and vol, like volition. So your will, you're willing them goodness, right? You're a well-wisher, benevolence. Really beautiful word. So devotees are not violent, they're benevolent. They want the highest good for others, and therefore they engage in the Yuga Dharma as Srila Prabhupada has brought for us, that we go out and we share the holy names, we uplift those who are struggling in the city of Dallas, who desperately need the lotus feet of Kalachandji, although they don't yet realize. Therefore, we have the Festival of Joy. We have Kalachandji's restaurant. We have devotees like Mishra Bhagavan Prabhu who go out on this book distribution regularly. Many devotees here. Chakri Prabhu and Vishnu Priya Mataji, they go on weekly Harinam. So such amazing efforts. This Krishna House project, there's now a club at Southern Methodist University, which will help to uplift the students, and some of them will become nice Vaishnavas, if Kalachandji so desires. So we've now concluded the Lord's instructions to the demigods, and tomorrow, please bring your notebooks, bring your open hearts and ears, because we'll hear an amazing example of what does Atmanivedanam look like? What does full surrender to the orders of Krishna, what does that look like? So thank you all for your kind attention. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now we have some time for your reflections. If we have a microphone, that would be helpful. Before that, I can just pass this around.
When you, my question is, when you are distributing books and trying to share the glories of Krishna consciousness, how do you reconcile with people the fact that devotees are nonviolent, but yet the Bhagavad Gita, which we distribute to everyone, takes place on a battlefield?
Yeah. It may require a long answer. I'm trying to think of, in a quick way, how one would explain it. Maybe others can share a perspective. But violence has its place. It just requires knowledge to know when and where to use violence. Like, you don't just let anyone and everyone do whatever they want. We're in a world where there's malicious people. So if we say nonviolence means that you never defend yourself, then that's just foolish. So also, if you go into the backstory of Mahabharata, the Pandavas didn't want this war to happen. It's just because Dhritarashtra was so weak-hearted and Duryodhana was so envious that this war had to happen. And ultimately it was Krishna's will. We don't explain that to people on the street. God wanted to kill hundreds of millions of people, although that is the fact. He wanted to rid the earth of the unnecessary burden of these misguided, materialistic rulers. But I think the simple answer to explain to people is that violence has its place, and generally that is simply in defense. Outside of self-defense, violence does not need to be used. So that's one simple reflection. Are there other reflections on this thoughtful question? Can we pass the microphone?
I think there's a little list of people that you can defend yourself against. Somebody steals.
Yeah. One who steals.
Stealing your property, your family, your wife, you're attacking you. Mm-hmm. Somebody tries to poison you. Somebody tries to burn you up or burn up your house.
So the Vedas actually explicitly state when violence
Yeah, there's
can be
violence.
used.
Just like if right now somebody came in with a gun and tried to rob all of us, and then a devotee came that had a gun and put the drop on him, and possibly, this actually happened out in the park one time.
Mm-hmm.
So a man was attacking the vice president of the temple with a weapon, and he got shot by a devotee and left his body, and the reputation that's kept us from being harassed like that since then. Somehow it's gotten around that you don't go to mess with the Hare Krishna people and try and break into their schools. So you might get killed doing that. And that's actually good preaching, in a way. Sometimes that's the only preaching. Like I remember when I was in high school, and I talk about Hare Krishna people with my friends, and some of them they would attack the devotees. They'd throw potatoes at them, and one of them said, "You got to be careful, though. They'll jump up and kick you," because some devotee who knew martial arts kicked one of these kids, and that was actually the best preaching he could hear. Then he had some respect. So this is some of the things I've heard about.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, devotees aren't foolish. And like there's that example of Narada Muni who had a snake as a disciple, right? That he told this snake to not bite people. And so these young children were throwing rocks at this snake and abusing it. And the snake was just tolerating it, Trinada Pisunichena. We might think this means we just take whatever beating people give us. And then Narada came and the snake explained what had been happening. And Narada said, "I told you not to bite, but not to show your fangs." So we don't want to cause others harm, but in order for self-preservation, in order to continue on with our service, and especially to protect a family, a community, we may need to show our fangs. What's that, Prabhu? Show your hood specifically, okay. Yeah. Yeah, because we have sometimes, we have property to maintain. And in Mayapur, for example, people were coming, some criminals, to steal from the deities, or even steal the deities themselves. And that's why they installed Ugra Narsingha to protect the temple. And I see that there's a new fence around the Kalachandji's parking lot. And actually, there have been violent attacks on Hindu temples specifically, and now the US government is giving large grants to Hindu temples for increased security. So, it's a real consideration that, yes, devotees are non-violent, but we have to protect the devotees at the same time from violent people. Yeah. Very nice question. Yes, Prabhu?
Sometimes a devotee will tell somebody else, "That was a nice kirtan. That was a good kirtan." But then other devotees will say, "Well, there's no such thing as a bad kirtan. All kirtans are good." And sometimes there's kirtans where devotees are doing flips and cartwheels, literally. And it's just ecstatic. Like, I remember my first festival in December 1974, just a little over 50 years ago. We went to Canada, and it was for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disappearance date. And we were supposed to have a feast at 1 o'clock. So it was fasting until the 1 o'clock feast. But the kirtan became so ecstatic that the noon arti went all the way through the 4 o'clock arti.
Wow.
We just couldn't quit chanting, and then finally at around 5 in the evening, then it was time for prasadam. The boys couldn't. But that was such an ecstatic kirtan, and just, I'd never forgotten that. That was 50 years ago. Or there was another kirtan that I was part of in Russia. I went to the Russian Vaishnava festival in time, and they had it's like 7,000 devotees in this huge auditorium, dancing, chanting with Niranjana Swami leading the kirtan, and Shivaram Maharaj was there. All these wonderful devotees. On the ladies' side, they were all doing this choreographed, kind of like a huge music video, and then the men were just going nuts, doing the Kazakh dancing where they kick out the legs and spins, and huge helicopters and locomotion, and everybody was. It was just an incredible kirtan for hours, and sometimes kirtans don't seem inspiring, but maybe is that just us, because we're not. It's where our consciousness, and we don't think it's as good a kirtan as another kirtan we went to.
Thank you, Prabhu. And this point reminds me of Lord Chaitanya's weapon in this age. We're talking about violence, right? What is Lord Chaitanya's weapon in this age? One is his beauty, but also the kirtan. Through the chanting, he is killing the demoniac, the malicious tendencies in our own hearts. so we can become pure, compassionate Vaishnavas. And when we go out and do Harinam, when we share the holy names, it's cleansing the malicious tendencies from the people of the world. And so, especially in this area, we hear gunshots. It's not the greatest place in America, right near Radha Kalachandji's temple. But by going out and doing Harinam, by distributing prasadam, by sharing Srila Prabhupada's books, by representing nicely, by just walking around and being a friendly neighbor, we are cleansing the malicious, violent tendencies which are dormant in the hearts of all conditioned souls and creating the spiritual world here. And Nityananda Prabhu in his class last week was sharing his vision for 1,000 homes in this place. And Kalachandji Park, right? This is the dream. To have a village with its own police force, its own governance. So little by little, we're starting by Srila Prabhupada's grace, by Tamal Krishna Goswami's grace, we have this amazing foundation. And devotees like Mother Padma and Durashaya Prabhu, so many stalwart devotees here who have put in so much work. Now we have this incredible foundation for creating the spiritual world in Dallas. And it already is here. This temple is Vaikunta. But we can expand Radha Kalachandji Dham more and more by going out and sharing this ecstatic kirtan with others. Is there a good or a bad kirtan? Well, you answered it, I think, Prabhu. Kirtan, no, it's absolute. So it's just a question of, are we there to serve or are we there to enjoy? Yes?
I think that when we're talking about violence and when it's acceptable, I think you're bringing up Lord Chaitanya was very appropriate because we know that he was very compassionate and preached that, but yet he was going to kill the
Jagai Madhai.
Yes, for his violence against
Vaishnava.
Yeah. So I think that's very good, appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Who could be more compassionate and non-violent than Lord Chaitanya? And yet, right, in the time of need. Okay. Any last reflections? Maybe Drishta, Nanda Braja, one last reflection. It would be nice to hear something from you all. You can both share something.
I had more of a question. I was wondering, Krishna is saying that I'm not a fool. I don't give, sincere devotees these things. And sometimes I've felt that Krishna has put me in situations that were bad for my Krishna consciousness. Somehow I was around, and of course we can't blame Krishna for our poor decisions, but perhaps I'm like in a really tamasic situation and I'm really struggling to chant and I'm really struggling to wake up, or I'm somehow around people who are inimical towards devotees, or they're gossiping or something like that. We see that Krishna can sometimes put devotees in these situations, and we always have this mindset that, Krishna is always acting in my best interest. So I was wondering how to understand that when sometimes we're put in these situations where we don't have association, or we, it just becomes very difficult to chant and things like that.
Yeah. Or with association that's pulling us down. So how can we understand that Krishna is doing what's good for us when it appears that we're in an inauspicious situation? Yeah. Yeah, we have such a tendency to consider things from our point of view, that we think we know what's best, we think we know what's the most auspicious. We have some ideal of how we'd like our life to look, right? Like, my life will be perfect when this is different, when I'm in this place, or when I'm with these people, or when I'm doing this service. And it's just a way of our mind to get out of the current situation, to not deal with our current lessons that Krishna has put before us. It reminds me of the Gita verse where Krishna says that his devotees are detached from the auspicious and the inauspicious. because auspicious and inauspicious are material considerations. There is the question we can ask ourselves. This is a practical lesson. What is the lesson? That's the question we can ask ourselves in whatever situation we're in. Okay, for some reason Krishna has put me in this situation, so what's the lesson? What am I supposed to learn here? If I'm struggling to chant, maybe the lesson is determination, even in a difficult situation. If I'm with devotees who are gossiping, maybe the lesson is get out of those conversations as fast as possible and respect these devotees, but if gossip comes up, we very quickly go away. Or like we're talking about violence and defending devotees, when there's gossip and even criticism going on, then we should speak up. We either leave or we speak up and defend that devotee. Someone's talking about the temple president, critically, or some temple leader. And just sitting and hearing that is actually violence. It's very displeasing to the Lord. And so to actually speak up and say something beneficial on behalf of that devotee, or at least to leave, then maybe that's the lesson we need to learn in that situation. So these are a few reflections. Yeah. Thank you for your thoughtful question, Prabhu.
I was really appreciating when you were explaining that when we're encouraging people to forget Krishna, basically through these things like, hey, this is the best Netflix show, or this, it's violence. And because sometimes we say my material life, but we really could call it my violent life. How, Srila Prabhupada says that we're not scared enough of Maya. So maybe if we use the word my violent life, then it would shake us a little bit to think about that, we shouldn't be doing anything material. We should be doing that which brings us closer to Krishna. And that's really what violence is about, is non-violence is going to Krishna. Violence is going away from Krishna. So the Vaishnava is always thinking about how to bring somebody closer to Krishna. And sometimes it's rough. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's even death. The person who's on death row or to kill somebody, it's actually more worse for them to not be given the death penalty. If they don't get the punishment of death from killing somebody in this lifetime, then their punishment after they die is even rougher. So the devotee goes, I know because I understand the Vedas, or my mercy is, it's time for death. This is the situation. And so we think like that. What is the best way to bring somebody to closer to Krishna? It can broaden. I'm not saying we go out and kill everybody and stuff like that, but knowing who you are, what's your service? How are you bringing people closer to Krishna? So, very interesting subject, Prabhu. Violence.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So we will hear not only about Dadichi Muni, who is a great exalted Vaishnava, but also Vritrasura. So the Lord, when he spoke about nonviolence, the reason we're having this whole conversation is because the Lord is glorifying his devotee Vritrasura. So let's see his nonviolence. And it's so curious that who is a nonviolent person is this enormous demon who is attacking the demigods who are maintaining the universe. This is an example of nonviolence. It's very interesting the way Bhagavatam flips our mundane conceptions of what is good and bad, of what is right and wrong. So we'll hear the beautiful prayers, the beautiful example, and then the backstory of Vritrasura as Chitraketu Maharaj. So there's a lot to look forward to. Stay tuned in Srimad Bhagavatam, and it just gets better and better as our hearts become purified and we become blissfully engaged in the service of Sri Sri Radha Kalachandji. So thank you all again, online and in person. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
चिंतामणि प्रकर सदमसु कल्पवृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्रशतो सम्भ्रमसेव्यमानम् गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि चिन्तामणि प्रकर सदमसु कल्पवृक्षलक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्रशत सम्भ्रम सेव्यमानम् गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेनं कन्वन्तं अरविन्ददलयताक्षं वेणुं कन्वन्तं अरविन्ददलयताक्षं बरहावतं समसितां बुधसुन्दराङ्गम् कन्दर्पकोटि कमनीय विशेषशोभं गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि चिन्तामणि प्रकर सद्मसु कल्पवृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्रशत सम्भ्रम सेव्यमानम् गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकलश वनमालवंशी रत्नांगदं प्रणयकेली कलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियतप्रकाशं गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि चिन्तामणि प्रकरसद्मषु कल्पवृक्षलक्षावृतेषु रभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानम् गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि चिन्तामणि अंगानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पान्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति